leadership, being in a situation where you are having to navigate or plan for a difficult conversation, this is your lucky video today, because in this video, I'm going to answer any questions that you have as it relates to having difficult conversations as a leader. Now, this impacts so many of us, whether you are in my direct target audience that I provide executive coaching and consultation services to, which are women in leadership, or you may be outside of my direct audience. You may be a man in leadership, or you may be someone that is thinking about leadership, but not a leader just yet. We all deal with this, right? We all deal with hard conversations, difficult conversations, and etc. I guarantee you this information I'm going to share is very universal. It can be applied to so many situations, so many conversations you're having. And I want to answer your questions too and provide you with some insight in terms of how you can navigate those conversations. Now, this is a live video, and there's typically a point where the audience will join. So give me just a few minutes to say hello to everyone before we get started. If you are a woman in leadership and you are struggling with some aspect of your career, having those very high stakes, high pressure conversations, you're welcome to reach out to me for an executive strategy session at exciteexcellence.org, and we'll have a conversation and come up with a plan for you. Now, if you are new to me, this channel focuses heavily on advanced communication skills and strategies. My mission here is to help you be able to communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure. And if you like that and it sounds interesting to you, then you absolutely want to subscribe to the channel. Now, why do people struggle with difficult conversations? We talked about this a little bit this morning in the live. Take a look at difficult conversations Q&A for leaders. This is something we talked about earlier. The reason why people tend to struggle with difficult conversations is because they just don't want to have it. They don't want to have a conversation that deals with some form of a conflict, some form of a challenge. Most people, now as I mentioned this morning, there are some people that just like to have conflict. They like to deal with drama all the time. But for the most part, most people don't really want to do all that. And when you're having a difficult conversation, it can sometimes feel like there's just extra weight you have to carry because you know it's going to be hard. Now, I do want to tell you, I have a framework that I specifically use anytime I'm having a difficult conversation. And that framework is from my over 20 years of experience as a C-suite executive, a director, and a manager as well. I've been in those very friendly and very contentious situations, and I'm here to support you on your journey. So welcome to those of you joining the live today. If you have a difficult conversation planned, you just were a part of a difficult conversation, or you just want to ask some questions about a difficult conversation, this is the best channel for you on YouTube. I want to say hello to Brenda. I'm going to say Brenda Deckets Remitzi. If I said that incorrectly, I'm so sorry, Brenda. I hope you're doing well today. Let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you all are joining from today and what questions you have about difficult conversations. Maybe you're not sure what to say, when to say it, how to say it, and all of that. Then let's talk about it in the comments below. We have Cat 23rd. Hello, Cat. Good to see you again, friend. Cat says, hey, Doc, I'm here. Well, I appreciate you being here, Cat, and high five, friend. Good to see you again. So we talked a little bit about difficult conversations this morning, why people tend to stay away from difficult conversations because it's hard. But I'm going to share with you the framework that I literally use for every difficult conversation that I have with either my team, my coworkers. Thank you for the heart emojis, and thank you for the high five back, Cap. I have this all the time. So this is just the framework I use. You're welcome to ask me any questions that you have as it relates to maybe hard conversations you have planned for this upcoming week. I'm here to support you any way that I can. Now, what happens for me whenever I am going to have a difficult conversation with someone, I typically probably have multiple things I need to talk to the person about. But my framework is the following. One of the first things that I do when I know I have to have a difficult conversation with someone is I take a few moments and I obviously identify the issue. There's a reason I need to have this difficult conversation with this person. what is the main reason? What's the main issue? Now, I know a lot of times, and you all let me know if you've ever experienced this before, when you've had a difficult conversation had to you, because I've had difficult conversations had to me many times throughout my career. But typically when you have those difficult conversations, have you ever noticed that the person that's speaking to you, they list at least 2 to 5 things you're doing wrong, maybe 10. Has it ever happened to you before? It's happened to me. And this is what your average leaders do that are not subscribed to my channel. Okay, they typically will do this. They come up with a list of things. I gotta talk to her about this. I gotta talk to him about that, and this and that and that and this and that and whatever else. And they come up with a whole slew of things they want to talk to you about. I want to say hello to Geraldine Metcalf. 8240, hello, how you doing today? Says, I'm Faith. Well, welcome. Glad to see you. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of times your managers will just come to you and say, oh, there's a lot of stuff we need to talk to you about. This is wrong, and this is wrong. I don't do that. I personally focus on what's the main issue. What's the main problem? That if I don't talk about anything else in this difficult conversation, the number one thing that I talk about is this. And that issue, that challenge, whatever that thing is, so to speak, is something that you know you have to have some type of plan for. There has to be some type of solution. So I'll think about the person I'm speaking with. I'll narrow down what exactly it is that they are struggling with and make sure I have that in the back of my mind when I have my conversation. The next step I do when it comes to having those difficult conversations is to set out time to talk to that person in a reasonable time. You don't want to talk to someone about a difficult conversation at the end of the day, at the very, very beginning of the day. It just makes things very challenging sometimes. The middle of the day can be hard. You have to do it in a reasonable time. And I'm going to share with you actually a situation that happened to me as it relates to a difficult conversation that someone had with me and what happened and why I say end of the day conversations are really bad to have. So let me know what questions you all have about difficult conversations. If you are new to me, this channel focuses heavily on advanced communication skills and strategies. If you are one of my amazing subscribers, welcome. I'm so glad that you are here, and I appreciate your support and being here on the channel. There's a lot of great things we talk about here, and I'm here to support you any way that I can. So let me share with you personally what happened to me many years ago when someone had a difficult conversation with me at the end of the day. Now, I was not in a leadership role. I was just working at that time. And there were some issues that were happening with a couple things as it relates to the schedule. The schedule was not ideally the way that it should be, but there was a couple things that I was not aware of as it relates to how the schedule was supposed to be in this particular office I was working at. And some of the things I just didn't know, or I was not experienced enough to know it, or they did not let me know about it. Well, what happened is that the owner of this particular place came to me and said, oh, I need to talk to you for a second. And I said, well, I don't really have time to talk today. Like, I really don't. And I'm going to tell you why I didn't have time to talk and what happened. I said, I don't have time to talk today. And they said, well, it's just going to be just a couple minutes. I was like, I really don't have time. They said, it's just a few minutes. I have to talk to you today. So I went and talked to them. That talk ended up lasting a lot longer. It was very combative. It was very argumentative against me. And you know what happened? My best friend at the time was getting married in California. And I had planned on catching a flight to go to her wedding. And guess what happened? I didn't make it to her wedding because I was too late dealing with a difficult conversation when someone was just trying to talk to me at the very end of the day and then having a ton of things to talk about. So this is exactly what can happen. You do not know what people are doing. You don't know what life they're having at the end of the day. You have no idea. So having difficult conversations at the very end of the day is an absolute no. Don't do that. And I'm going to show you another situation that happened to me by having a difficult conversation at the end of the day. But I want to answer your questions. I saw some things in the chat. We have Akitsia. Hello, Akitsia. Good to see you, friend. Hope you're doing well. Akitsia says the King of Greece has just entered the live of knowledge and beauty. Well, thank you, Akitsia. High five, friend. Good to see you again. Keisha says, how are you, doctor? I'm doing fantastically well. It's Friday, so it's Q&A day, so I'm always excited about those. Cat 23 says, how do you distinguish between a conversation that feels difficult because it's important versus one that's difficult because we're avoiding it for the wrong reasons? That's very good. We're going to dive into that for sure. Akitia says, what's the topic? And Cat 23rd says, difficult conversations. Yes, we're doing difficult conversations today, Akitia. This is a Q&A. So if you have questions or you have some insights to share, perhaps about some difficult conversations you've had to share with our audience, this is the time for us to have a conversation about it. But let's go into Kat's question, because it's a very good one. A lot of times, some of the clients I work with, there is a sense of discernment that people sometimes struggle with because we don't know exactly how to tell if this is just difficult because this is a big topic, or if this is difficult because, as Kat mentioned, we're avoiding it for the wrong reasons. Now let's go into why, or how you can kind of determine the difference between those two type of conversations, because it is really important. Kat, if you have a conversation where it's a difficult conversation, and let me preface it by saying a topic specifically that can be difficult. If it's anything that is related to you personally, so specific, if it is something related to maybe how you're performing, maybe there's something that's happening outside of your world of the industry that you're in or the role you're in right now, and it's something that's happening there. For instance, we had a really nice dialogue yesterday about people that may have things going on outside of work that may be going into their personal life, where, for instance, I believe it might have been Robert that was talking about someone that was dealing with some things. They had a loss in their family and they were just spilling into work, or something else that just deals with a very personal or emotional level. That is going to be that difficult conversation that feels hard. I'm going to give you an example of a difficult conversation that was hard for me. I've had many times that will hopefully give you some insight to understand the difference between those two. Now, the conversation where we're just avoiding it, this is something about someone not acting appropriately or being rude, or maybe someone not completing the expectations that are needed for their role. And maybe this person is a friend of a friend. They know that this is the issue with this person, but because it's a friend of a friend, they just kind of, sweep it under the rug. Oh, don't worry about her. Oh, don't worry about him. We're just going to keep letting them go, do what they're supposed to be doing, even though it's incorrect. That is a situation where it's one of those conversations where you are really avoiding it for the wrong reasons, because this is somebody that's a friend. They may have had a conversation or something like that. So I want to say hello to Cool Roster. Hello. Welcome. So let me give you an example of a difficult conversation in terms of one that's important. Okay. As I mentioned, if it's that difficult conversation that's important, there is something emotional, there's something personal that is surrounding this entire conversation that is not easy to discuss. So, Kat, I'm going to give you an example of one that I've had. One of the harder conversations I have had, and I've actually had this multiple times, and I've gotten very good at them, is when someone is working with you and let's say they have some condition going on where it is related to their body odor. Now, I have talked about this previously, about addressing people if they have a body odor, because a lot of times as a leader, as a manager, you are going to deal with these hard conversations. Now, I've had these conversations multiple times throughout my career. The first time I had this conversation, I was not a manager. I was simply an employee, and the manager didn't want to deal with it. So they let me deal with it. And so that's where I started to learn more about it. But definitely as an executive, I've had those conversations. This is one of those situations, Kat, where the conversation is important. People are being impacted because someone has something going on. There's a body odor. But I will share with you that majority of the time, pretty much every time I've had those conversations, and I don't have them often, I've had them multiple times, there is something going on personally for this particular individual that is impacting them being able to take care of themselves. So I'll give you some examples. One person was in a situation where they were in between housing. Another person was in a situation where their laundry machine has broken and they just simply didn't have the means to wash anything. And another person just simply had no idea whatsoever that they were not taking care of themselves. Kat, that's a conversation that's difficult. Though, if you've ever had those conversations, they're hard. They are hard. No matter what you're in, they are hard because you know this is sensitive for this person, and you hate to talk about it, but it's important, and you need to have that conversation. So this is exactly one of those situations where you have that difficult conversation, and it is a conversation where it's important, but this is just hard. It's something about somebody personally, something that they're dealing with, because there's some emotions that may be attached to it. I hope that gives you some insight in terms of differentiating between the two. Emotional, very personal situations is going to be difficult, but those situations where people just avoid because they don't want to deal with it, that's going to be everything else. So I hope that gives you some insight, Kat. Let me know if you have any other questions. You know I'm here for you. A Cool Roster raised their hand. Cool Roster says, oh, I'm a man. I have zero emotions. Not all men have zero emotions, Cool Roster. Cat 23rd says, when someone doesn't follow through on commitments made during a difficult conversation, what's your next move? So it depends on, okay, we have to, I guess I may have one question for you. When you think about those commitments, is it the person that you are having the difficult conversation with? Specifically, this is someone that maybe you're having a discussion with them about a difficult conversation, and you've came up with what they're going to work on specifically, and you have your own commitments, where they have their commitments that they're going to do? Or is it on your end as the person giving the information, saying, for instance, I commit that I'm going to provide you with additional support or something like that? Either way, if they don't, the key is just to really document it. Whenever you have a difficult conversation, if it's in a professional setting, if it's personal, it's one of those situations where you may want to bring it up in a conversation, and you may want to say, remember you mentioned that we were going to work on this, we were going to work on that, and hopefully the person says, oh my goodness, you're right, I forgot, or whatever they want to say specifically. But you may want to bring it up if it's personal. But if it's a business, if it's a professional conversation, you have to document it. That's one of the things that I was struggling with initially as a senior executive many years ago. Not as a C-suite, I had it down by then, but documentation is very important. You document, okay, these are the commitments that we're making to each other. I'm going to be able to provide you with additional support as the manager. You are going to make sure that you are being as attentive as you can be as the employee or as your business partner, etc., and just put everything together from there. But just make sure you follow up, Kat. That's important. Raj Kumar SE, hello, how you doing today? Raj Kumar says, this is a religious stream, right? No, it's not. Akitsia says, lots of cases regarding difficult conversations. Sometimes it's necessary to avoid a discussion if it's going to be difficult and coming back performed to continue it. Same easy way. Below I will, let's see what you said. I was looking for something. Okay, I think you probably were trying, below I will prepare an example. Yeah, so that's good. So this is exactly a scenario where this is why I don't like having difficult conversations at the very end of the day. Let's say if your workday ends at 5 o'clock, don't have your conversation at 4:45, 4:30. Don't. Try to have it at 3:30 at the latest. So that's not at the very end of the day, unless you're terminating somebody. If you're terminating somebody, then yes, more than likely you're probably going to have it at the end of the day. But that's because I've done terminations over the years. So definitely, Akitsi, I'm looking forward to your example, because that's really important. Sometimes people have those difficult conversations at the end of the day, and you're tired. You're tired. You're exhausted at the end of the day. The leader's exhausted. The person's exhausted, and you want to have a hard conversation. It's better for you to have it on another day. You have to be strategic. Just because there's an issue, it doesn't mean you have to talk to that person about it that day. If it's something that's highly emotionally charged and it's a big deal, it's a huge issue, it depends on the gravity of it. If it's something that somebody could have lost their life, somebody could have been injured or had some type of irreversible situation or circumstances happen to them, then yes, just an immediate conversation. We got to have it right now. However, if it's not something in that realm of urgency, then you probably can have the conversation the next day when emotions are not as high and people have calmed down. Cat 23 says, nope, not a religious stream. Thank you, Cat. I appreciate that. Raj Kumar SC says, words used here sound like religious. Let's see. Can you talk like you are talking to a friend so I can get? Sounds like I'm sitting in class. Well, Raj Kumar, I'm actually a public speaker, and I've been a public speaker for over 20 years. And this channel specifically heavily focuses on advanced communication skills and strategies. I'm not sure what you're looking for in terms of communication, but this is how I speak. My audience here, Kat 23rd, Akesia, they know how I communicate. And if it sounds a bit different and you feel like you're sitting in class, then there's other live streams you can attend, but I would be happy to have you here if you're ready to really advance how you're communicating as a leader in those very challenging and complex situations. Cat 23 says, what metrics or indicators tell you that you're genuinely improving as a practitioner of difficult conversations? One of them is your ability to stay calm under pressure. That is probably one of the very first metrics. For example, when people come to you for difficult conversations, maybe you're the receiver of the difficult conversation, or maybe you're giving a difficult conversation and the person starts to get emotional, your ability to remain calm and not get emotional or become very emotional with that person is a key metric that you are starting to learn how to master having difficult conversations. That's probably number one, the very first metric. The second metric I would say that is something to keep in mind when those situations happen is how you are able to communicate in those situations. One, remember, it starts in your mind. Someone's going to say something upsetting to you, or you may say something that's upsetting to someone else because you may not have mastered your emotions under pressure. And when you're having those very high stakes, high pressure conversations, your emotions are critical. That is absolutely the number one thing you have to have down. You can speak well, you can be polite, you can be all of those wonderful things and a great communicator. But if your emotions are way up here, I promise you it will come out of your mouth. It will. And so that's your first metric, Kat. It's just how you're able to, how you are mentally processing it, how are you responding to someone putting you in that high pressure like situation. How you speak is another one. If you're able to speak in a very calm way without getting upset and elevating your voice, then that's a metric that you want to be able to master, to indicate I'm getting a bit more comfortable with these hard conversations. Another one is your ability to start thinking on your feet. Now, that's a metric that everybody wants to be able to do, but that's a metric that will help you start to understand that, oh, I can think really quickly and respond. I'm starting to get it. Because in high stakes, very high pressure conversations that we talk about on the channel, you have to be able to think on your feet. You have to be able to think pretty quickly when those situations come up. Another metric that I would share with you that will be important to learn how to master, where you're starting to master difficult conversations, is you have the very unique ability to almost freeze this person that you're talking to in time, meaning that you are able to observe everything that they're doing because you're able to determine what are they saying, what are they not saying by their body language, their facial expressions, their nonverbal gestures, their verbal gestures. It gives you the ability to really be fully present in a conversation. Most of the time, what happens when you're having difficult conversations with people, we come in with our own agenda as leaders. And we say, this is what I want to talk to you about. This is a problem. That's a problem. This is a problem. Similar to what I mentioned to you at the very beginning of the live. But when you are at that place where you can actually listen to what's being said and observe what's not being said, you can be able to formulate responses based on the person's reactions. You could say, I see this as a concern for you, or what concerns do you have about that, all by looking at someone's face. Because most of the people, and I've talked about this a lot on my channel, and for those of you new, welcome, welcome. Thank you for the heart emojis. Most people in the world struggle with communication, and they struggle with 3 aspects of communication. There's a lot more, but I just have my 3 favorites that will help you be able to start mastering high stakes, high pressure conversations. Most people will struggle with silence, eye contact, and facial expressions. If you can start mastering those three, Kat, it will help you start to be more comfortable in those very high pressured, high stakes conversations. Okay, Akesia says, working as a procurement manager and dealing with suppliers, sometimes you need to avoid long discussions as they try harder, being unpleasant, creating discussions with negative impact. That's a really great point, impact on the purchases. Thank you, Akesia. I appreciate that. That's a good one. And I've dealt with a lot of procurement just as a C-suite executive, and I know that can be very challenging. And you're right. You have to be really strategic about those situations because, and Akesia, you probably know this, when you're dealing with supplies and procurement, there's always this back and forth. Why is this not here? Oh, because this happened. Well, why didn't you tell me about this? Oh, I thought we did tell you about this. Well, you didn't tell me about it. Well, I thought that we did. Oh, this person was supposed to tell you. I'm sorry they didn't tell you. When am I going to get my items? I don't have the exact date. Like, there's always a back and forth when it comes to those specific situations, especially when it relates to procurement. And that is a great example of a difficult conversation when you may want to delay it only because it's going to be a long conversation. And that is definitely not a conversation you want to have at the end of your workday or an hour before, because it will go on until, let's say if you finish up at 5 o'clock, those conversations will go to 6 o'clock, 6:30. You definitely want to make sure that you allocate time for that. And that's another very good insight you mentioned, Akesia, because ultimately, when you know you're going to have a difficult conversation, and you know this is not a simple, we're going to have a discussion about something, this is an issue, this is a challenge, let's come up with a plan. It may be something more involved, like Akesia mentioned. You know you're going to need more time. Make sure you don't schedule those conversations in a time frame that is not going to work with your schedule. So I appreciate you mentioning that, Akesia. We have, I want to say, Kwame Vandame, I hope I said it correctly, says, hello there, watching from Ghana. Well, welcome. Glad that you're here today. Welcome, welcome. We have Tahasu. If I said it wrong, I'm sorry, friend. But says hello from Portugal. Welcome, welcome. Akesia says, dealing with suppliers, keep distances, and email communication helps a lot. Akesia, fantastic insight. Email communication is critical because a lot of time in conversations, if it's not in writing, I'm telling you, people just have selective memory. They forget certain situations. They don't forget. They forget. They remember. They forget. Having it in writing is important. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. One of the things that I have found to be helpful when you have those conversations, especially Akesia with suppliers, is to follow back up with an email. During our meeting, we discussed these commitments or these deliverables that we're expecting for our supplies at this time. A, B, C, D, E, or whatever you want to put in there. But sending some type of follow-up email to the people that need to know about it is important. Especially when you're dealing with suppliers, you have to know who is the person that is making these decisions that's going to help you specifically. Because if you're sending the information to a sales rep, your sales rep may not be the person that really has the information. It's going to be definitely your distributor or something along those lines. So make sure the right people know what's going on and who's communicating with who, and make sure you have that information too. You need to know who needs to be a part of this conversation so that you can make sure when you follow up in the email and you're having that conversation with someone, that you have it in writing. And then when things go in the wrong direction, because sometimes it happens with procurement, you have a reference point. You can say, wait a second, I know that I talked to this person about this issue before. Let me scroll on my email and find this information. And then make sure when you're reaching out to them, you say, we discussed this via email. We are expecting this supply shipment to be arriving at this time. Now you're telling me it's 3 months later. What's happened? What's going on? What's going on in the economy? Because that deals a lot with suppliers sometimes, I've found. But that's a really great insight. Email communication is critically important in difficult conversations. And even if you happen to be the leader and you're following up with someone, making sure that you document. As I mentioned, I struggled with this initially when I was in an executive role as a director. You have to document these conversations. I know it's tedious, it's frustrating, and it's tiresome, but this is the way you keep track of difficult conversations. All right, we have Raj Kumar SE says, nice. I want to improve my communication. I speak give languages. Okay. Mind always. Okay, let me see what you're saying. Okay, you speak a couple languages. I think that's what you're saying. English doesn't come out easily. What should I do to improve? I don't like reading books. Okay, well, Raj Kumar, definitely want to subscribe to the channel. I have several people on my channel that are from other parts of the world that are wanting to improve how they speak in English as well. And this will be a great opportunity for you to hear me communicate in English. I think if you're watching YouTube channels, you just want to be mindful of who you're listening to in terms of how they communicate. I don't necessarily communicate in, I would say, more of a slang type format, because that's not how I present myself as a business owner. But you're welcome to listen to any of my videos. And if you have questions specifically, let me know. But I do have several people on my channel that are in similar situations. They speak other languages and they're trying to speak English better. I'm trying to work on it. And one of the things I say is you have to hear it. In my case, for instance, I speak Spanish. And the only way I was able to start learning Spanish was because I had to listen to it. Now, I don't speak it as much. I'm about to get back into speaking Spanish as much as I did before. But you have to just listen to the language and listen to people that are speaking, I would say, decent English or proper English as best as you can to start learning. And if you don't like reading books, that's okay. Sometimes some people like reading books, some people don't. That's why I would watch a video, honestly. I would watch videos just to help you. But I will say books are not bad. But I think when it comes to learning the English language or trying to pick up on words as it relates to English, you definitely want to hear somebody. A book is only going to tell you but so much. That's for sure. But you're welcome to subscribe to the channel. There's several videos here where I talk about public speaking, Raj Kumar, and I talk about difficult conversations, managing your emotions under pressure, and anything that's public speaking related or communicating. That's what my main channel is about. Will definitely help you. So if you have any questions as you're watching any of my videos, just let me know. I'm here to support you any way that I can. Just put it in the comments below and reach out to me. Akesia says to avoid difficult conversations. Let me see what else you were saying. Yes, good point, Akesia. So Akesia is saying communication helps a lot to avoid difficult conversations. Yes, because if you have it in writing, then this is something that you already have in writing. It's in black and white. You know exactly what you discussed. So I appreciate that, Akesia. Cat 23rd says, when you have difficult conversations, at the end of the day, the relationship suffers because the other person receives your fatigue as disrespect. Kat, that's a really good insight. And I really appreciate you and Akesia for bringing some really great insights today during the live, because what you mentioned is so true. A lot of times when managers, and let me give you a secret why managers wait to the end of the day. I'm going to tell you a secret because I know you may not think about it, but a lot of times when managers are waiting at the end of the day to have a difficult conversation with someone, you're right. That person's tired. And I mentioned that earlier. The manager's tired. The employee is tired. And so when they're talking to the employee after a long day, the employee's probably going to have the long look on their face as if they're ready to go home. And I don't blame them. They've had a long work day. And sometimes that may come across as disrespect, or this person didn't care what I had to say. I don't know what their problem is. And that's not the case. It's just you're choosing the wrong time of the day to have a difficult conversation. Now, let me tell you why managers wait to the end of the day. How many of you have had difficult conversations at the end of the day? I have. I've had conversations at the end of the day. For those of you who missed earlier, I mentioned that I had a difficult conversation at the end of the day, and I missed my best friend's wedding that was in California, and I still to this day am furious about that. And that has been decades ago. But most of the time, and thank you for the heart emojis, the reason why managers wait until the end of the day to have those conversations, because they don't want to have them. They are trying to just put it off and put it off and put it off some more until the last second when they can't put it off anymore and they know they have to talk to you. It's because they don't want to do it. And as I mentioned, most managers, most people, they don't want to deal with difficult conversations because they feel like there's going to be some form of a conflict that happens. Now, some managers will do it at the very beginning of the day to throw your day all off. They will start at the very beginning of the day before you start your task. Why? Because they haven't been able to probably really function that well because they just know they have to have this conversation with you. I have found, depending on the context, if you're doing a termination, you're going to need to have that at the end of the day. Unless it's something egregious. If it's something egregious and this person has almost hurt somebody or endangered someone's life, then that's a conversation you have to have at any point in time during the day. Just make sure people know about it. But I have found that having conversations at the after lunchtime or early afternoon are better times to have difficult conversations if you are in a leadership position. The very beginning of the day is usually pretty busy. You just don't want to catch people when they're in the middle of a project. If you know your team's schedule and you know that there's times where maybe they are going to be really busy, don't have the conversation when you know it's going to throw them off. Just have it at a time when things are starting to wind down, but not at the very, very end of the day. Raj Kumar, and thank you for the heart emoji, says, my written English is better though. I lived in different countries and learned different language, so difficult to think in English. Okay, understood. Well, I appreciate you mentioning that. And if you have any questions, let me know. But definitely watching the channel may help you there. Glenn Carroll, how are you doing today? Let's see. Glenn said something about, I don't know. I mean, that situation you're mentioning about cheating on sisters and stuff, that's definitely not what I focus on my channel specifically. That's a bit out of my scope. I'm here to really help, but I would say if you did something like that, I mean, there's some other conversations you probably need to have with someone about making things right and telling the truth. Raj Kumar says, silence, eye contact, and facial expressions. Wonderful. I need help with all of that. Well, friend, you need to subscribe to the channel because that is all I talk about here on this channel to help you there. Akesia says, exactly, Dr. Raj Kumar says, people who excelled in communication, they always say read books. I tried many years and I cannot complete even one book. What other ways can I improve? Well, Raj, what book were you reading? Which books were you reading? Some books are good. I'll tell you one book I'm actually reading right now, actually. Believe it or not, I'm reading right now just because it was sent to me via email. But I'm reading one of Grant Cardone's book. It's the 10X Rule. I'm actually reading that. And it depends on the book that you're reading, Raj. Some of the books are, they're just not, they're not, I don't want to say books are bad because someone's sharing knowledge that they have learned. But there's some books that might be a bit more engaging than others. And so, for instance, the book that I'm reading, the 10X Rule book, I wasn't quite sure about it initially, and I started reading it actually just last night. I just started reading it, and it's actually somewhat engaging at the very beginning. And sometimes it depends on the type of books you're reading. So for instance, myself, I'm reading more books that are aligned with obviously business growth, financial literacy, and wealth building and things along those lines. But Raj Kumar, it just depends on what you're reading because some books can be really, really boring and some books can be really hard to read. I will tell you, I read one book, and I'm not going to say the person's name or anything like that, but I read one book and it just was not my kind of book. It was a book that talked about, how I want to say it without saying the person's name. It was a book that talked about like jealousy, things that happen as women in the workplaces and etc. And it just wasn't my kind of book. There's sometimes you have hard conversations in high stakes situations, but I tend to be a pretty positive, upbeat person, and I just don't like reading stuff that's just like a almost like a downer to me. I don't function like that. I like to be high energy all the time. And I just started reading the book and I stopped after about the first chapter or so. So you might be reading a book that is not in alignment with who you are or how you function. And so the key, Raj Kumar, is to find out what kind of books are really interesting to you. You'll probably find one or two that you like. I mean, there's a couple books that I've read over the years that I actually happen to like quite a bit. Cat 23 says, if you could change one thing about how most organizations train managers to handle difficult conversations, what would it be? Your opinion, Doc. I think, and that's a really good question, Kat, because they don't train their managers on it. That's the problem. If I could change anything about it, it would be to train their managers on it or to hire me to help train their managers on it. Because most of the time, what happens to managers, and if you all let me know if you've seen this before, is that they'll have someone, okay, you've done an amazing job and you're going to be promoted to the next role. We're going to give you more money on your salary. You're going to do harder things. You're going to manage more people and you're going to be fabulous. You're just going to be fabulous on it. And you say, yes, it's great. That's great. Fantastic. Great. I'm ready to get started. They give you everything you need and then you get started. And guess what happens? You don't know how to manage people or you struggle with those hard conversations. Why? Because no one told you how to do it. What I have seen happen, thank you for the heart emojis, and I've been in senior leadership roles for over 20 years, and I'm telling you from experience, this is exactly what happens, Kat. People are promoted, they like them, they do a really great job, they're really nice to everybody, and now we're going to make you a manager of a team of 10 people. And you've never had really hard conversations or you don't know how to control your emotions under pressure when your team members may be doing something incorrectly or making you really upset. And you don't know how to respond. And then you get a call from HR and says, oh, well, you know what? Your employee said you were being rude or intimidating or mean to them. And the person's thinking to himself, I didn't do anything. Well, that's what I would change, is that there has to be a better vetting process than just saying we want to have this person we like transition into a role, because that person you like transitioning into the role, they may not be ready for it yet. And the part that makes it so sad, Kat, is that there'll be people that are not ready for these roles and they transition into them. This is their first time being managers or leaders. Things go in not the best direction. And then they quit, they resign, they leave, and then they say, oh, I was a manager and I'm done with it. I don't ever want to manage people again. I can't tell you how many people deal with that. A lot of the people I work with, some of my clients have been in situations because they just weren't trained. And I would really tell organizations, when you're at the point where you want to hire someone, and thank you for the heart emojis, make sure you vet them. Have they had hard conversations before? How would you manage a hard conversation? Many people will tell you what you want to hear. Oh, I would listen, I would do this. But no, what really happens? Like, really, what would you do? And you sometimes don't know that until that person's been in that situation. So I would say do more vetting first. You don't need to hire somebody or promote somebody just because you like them. That's important. You want to make sure you can work with somebody, but you want to make sure that they're able to communicate and get things done and still be able to build a team. The second would be to have some training. I have a high stakes communication analysis that I have on my website. It's a different name now, but I'm about to change it. But it's a way to really help you be able to dive into how you communicate as a person. It's more customized. I look at their facial expressions, when they speak, how do they speak, what are some things that may be taken away from their executive presence, how are you able to handle yourself under emotion, defining your triggers, all of those things we talk about on the channel, but more in a customized way to support someone. So I would say having that training in place for more high pressure situations, how are you going to control your emotions, is something that would be helpful. And having some type of simulations or role playing in it would be helpful too. That's what I would say, honestly, Kat, because I've seen the other side and I see how people struggle with it. Raj Kumar says, but I am good listener, like listening. Okay, fantastic. Rahul Sikdar says, happy Eid Mubarak. I believe I said it correctly. Well, welcome, welcome. Akesia says, especially with their offers of suppliers. Doctor, first, the necessary email communication, and once the ground is prepared for agreement, then personal communication to avoid difficulties in conversation. That is a fantastic framework that you laid out for communicating in that situation, because the email is important. You have to have it in writing, but all of your conversations cannot be in email, because that would take forever and things are sometimes lost in translation. They can be. So having that personal conversation does help to avoid difficult conversations. Akesia, thank you so much for bringing that up. That's very helpful. We have Modin Kuti. Hope you're doing well. Akesia says, conclusion email communication is a crucial part of an easygoing conversation. And Akesia says, appointments also help. Yes, because having a scheduled time where you can have a conversation with someone, and me and you have allocated, this is the time where we're going to work together on a project with some suppliers or whatever the case may be, allows both parties to have the opportunity to, one, prepare for the conversation that might be more difficult or challenging, and then two, for both parties to be fully present. Like, we're focused specifically on this issue. How can we come up with a resolution with it? Sometimes when it's on the fly and there's no appointments, the outcome is not as well as it would be if you had the opportunity to make sure that you are scheduled and you have some time to go into the issue or go into the challenge. So Akesia, I appreciate you once again for bringing some great insights. Raj Kumar says, maybe my communication is good, but when I listen to a very good public speaker, I compare myself to them and consider my communication as weakness. Don't know why. How do I know if I communicate well? A lot of it has to do with, are people understanding what you're saying, Raj Kumar? Just because you listen to someone, I would say this, let's rephrase this a little bit. And this is me coming as an executive coach. Instead of saying my communication is a weakness, when you hear someone that may be a public speaker or an official or someone speaking in different scenarios or environments, maybe you can think about it differently and say, what can I learn from this person? That doesn't mean that you are at a place where your speaking skills is a weakness. You're just growing just like everybody else. The person you were listening to was a speaker for however many years. I've been a public speaker for 20 years. Have I always been a public speaker? No, I have not. Everybody starts from somewhere. It's just the same way as starting a business. Everybody, for the most part, starts from scratch at some point in their role, unless they've inherited an organization as a family member, etc. But just remember that everybody starts from zero, and we all build ourselves up. We learn, we educate ourselves. So instead of thinking of yourself as a weakness, when you hear people speak, think of, how is this person speaking that I may want to adapt in my language, and just keep working on it every day. I don't want you to think negatively of yourself. Definitely not if you're subscribed to my channel. Akesia says, if people party more also helps for more pleasant conversations. Hi. Yes, it does. It's good to have some kind of engagement also. That is very helpful. I believe, I would say my experience has been, and Akesia, let me know yours too, when you're able to have email communication, talk to someone on the phone, be able to have a dinner with someone and talk about business, you have a very solid relationship with that person. And you know that that person is there to support you and there to help you. And you both have a mutual understanding with each other that if a difficult conversation comes up, you're going to have to deal with it, but you have a relationship. And a lot of times, difficult conversations, they come from relationships. If you can build a strong relationship with your team, with your coworker, with your boss, when those challenges come up, you know that, okay, I want the best interest, so do you. Let's work together. Now, something changes in that relationship and they tend to act in a different way, then you just know that the dynamic is a bit different. But Akesia, that's really not a bad idea that you mentioned. We have, let's see, Wishi, I'm not sure what you're referring to, but thank you for being on the channel. I won't say what you're saying because I'm not quite sure what direction you're going in, but I appreciate you being here. Cat 23rd says, off topic, my apologies, but have you considered a moderator who will get rid of spam text that disrupt the session? Yes, Cat. So when I am at the point where we probably get closer to 1,000 subscribers, we're not too far off from that right now, I'm probably going to end up having a moderator. The challenge with the moderators is I have to find individuals that can keep up with my live schedule. And that's something I'm working on. There's another person, the name is in a different language, so I do not know how to pronounce it, and I'm sorry. But hello from Bosnia. Welcome. Hope you're doing well. We have, let's see, Brindle Solutions says hello. Well, welcome first, Brindle Solutions. How you doing today? Says hello. What are we talking about? We are talking about difficult conversations and any questions you have about having difficult conversations. This channel focuses on advanced communication skills and strategies. If you've ever wondered how can you speak in those very high stakes, high pressure situations as a leader, maybe you need to think on your feet. Maybe you need to master eye contact. Maybe you need to control your facial expressions. Maybe you need to manage your emotions under pressure. This is the absolute best channel on YouTube for you to learn that, because that is exactly what this channel is about. ACGB 2044. Well, hello, friend. How you doing? Good to see you. It's been a while, right? I'm good to see you again. Welcome back. Raj Kumar says, I have never appreciated any of my colleagues in the past 5 years of working in my professional, but I have helped them a lot by sharing knowledge. I was thinking the other day, maybe I should learn 10 different ways to encourage my colleagues how to bring confidence during public speaking. Well, that's great. That's fantastic, Raj Kumar. I think that's a great way. You want to build up your team when you're working with them, especially if you're in a leadership role. If there's something specific they need some support with, you're always welcome to share my channel with them, and I'll be able to provide them with some insight specifically. I work in terms of my executive coaching and consultation practice with women that are in leadership roles, but on my channel here, I'm supporting everybody. Women in leadership, men in leadership, people that are thinking about leadership or not there yet. So they're welcome to join if they have any questions. But encouraging your team and your employees is really important, and it's a great attribute to have as a leader, Raj Kumar. Kat says, what does closing the loop look like after a difficult conversation? How do you follow up without micromanaging or seeming to hold a grudge? That's a really good question. Kat, come up with some really great questions. Now, in terms of closing the loop after a difficult conversation, it would be following up with an email. Similar to what Akesia said, I would follow up with an email or some written format or something that says, this is what we talked about. This is what the plan is. Now, one of the things I didn't get to finish up with my framework, but I'll try to go through it in a moment when we have a moment to do so. In my framework, at the very end of it, there has to be some plan. Thank you for the heart emojis. There has to be some type of plan specifically in place for this, because if you don't have a plan when you're going to follow up, let's say, for instance, Kat, you follow up within a week, or you follow up within 2 weeks or a month, whatever that time frame is, then this is something that will actually help you with closing the loop. You've written it out, typed it out in that particular format. Then you've said, we're going to reconnect in about 2 weeks and see where we are. That's a great way to close the loop without micromanaging, because during your difficult conversation, you've already outlined that these are the next steps that you and I are both going to take. Now, in terms of doing it to where you're not holding a grudge, just be polite. Sometimes you just have to take mental note of how they were behaving or how they were presenting themselves, but just take it with, I observed you. I know that you may not like this, or may be upset with me, or etc. And the next time you speak with the person, you have to control your emotions and just still be polite. But you don't necessarily have to be, I would say, overly excited, depending on the context of what happened, what they said to you. Sometimes you may have to start creating a bit of distance, but if it's something that was constructive and it was an issue, then you absolutely want to just still be yourself. But if it's something that has been blown out of proportion, I would say, then you want to create some distance in that situation. Akesia says, exactly, doctor. The use of this tactic to spend time off work with people involved also helps. And Akesia says, doctor, I must exit. Thank you for the valuable communication. Stay flower for a pleasant day. United States and Greece United. Absolutely, Akesia. Well, great to have you again. Look forward to seeing you in the next live, and I hope you have an absolutely amazing weekend, friend. ACGB 2044 says, great to see you. This is my busiest time of the year for me. I'll start to slow down at the end of April. I miss your lives. Well, no problem. It's good to see you. I know it's been a while, but I'm glad you're in a busy time of the year. I hope things are going absolutely well for you, and look forward to seeing you on the lives. There's always the replays also, and if there's anything you have questions about, you're always welcome to reach out to me either on Instagram at Excite Excellence, on LinkedIn at Dr. Jacinta Lamantai, and here on YouTube, just send me an email, send me a comment, or etc. Okay, we have Kalai Pre 8665. Hello, welcome, welcome. Your lipstick shade, please. I don't even know what shade it is. It's something that one of my kids had picked up somewhere, and I don't even know what the color is. It's just a pink color. Cat 2030 says, what does conversational violence look like when it's subtle, sophisticated, and plausibly deniable? Well, I would say it looks like, well, let me say this. What does it look like is a little bit different. We have Azizov. Hello, welcome, welcome. And ACGB 2044 says, thank you. I really appreciate what you do. Well, I appreciate you too, friend. Okay, so to answer your question, conversational violence, what does it look like? Well, it's a little bit different. It is not always what we see, okay? It's not always what we see. Sometimes it's what we hear. And a lot of times, Kat, it's what we actually observe. When you're in a conversation with someone and they're being maybe a bit aggressive or being violent in a subtle way, they will be that individual that says very highly sarcastic remarks that are, thank you for the 100 friends, that are very just subtle, not nice, and almost feel like they're trying to just take jabs at you verbally. They may say, well, I know you don't like that, or I know you don't care about that, or I know you're not good at that. Those are type of subtle signs that I would say when someone's trying to be very subtle, very, 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 very sophisticated in how they're speaking to you, but they're trying to just be very nasty about it. And so you have to look at their facial expressions. Typically, when you have someone that is displaying that, Cat, their facial expressions will tell it all. These individuals have no filter, and they are definitely not trained. And so most of the time when they say that, you'll see their eyes you'll see first their eyebrows may lift up, they may look down, they may just kind of look back. That is what these individuals will do to say it in a very subtle way. They'll be very sophisticated about it because they're trying to still be professional, but they're trying to be rudely professional. I hope that makes sense. They're still trying to be nice, so to speak, but they're just saying, well, I was just talking to them. I don't know why they got upset. They have this very dismissive type of conversation or personality when it comes to you making a concern or a statement about something that you're worried about. They just dismiss you. And that's what that looks like. But you also have to observe what conversations are happening with that person when you're not there, or have some idea what conversations are happening. Most of the time, this is the thing, Kat, about just observing people and listening and being silent. People that are not following this channel, or that are maybe not trained in very high stakes communication, Kat, they're going to tell you everything. Even your managers, they're going to spill the beans. Just give them time to do it, because most of the time they can't help but to say, oh, I talked to this person, and I talked to that person, and I spoke with this person. And you just sit there and you just listen and say, okay, in your mind, okay, I know who's speaking with who. This is all what I do on my channel. This is what I do with my clients to help you master these skills, because it is hard when you're in a high stakes, high pressure conversation and you just don't know how to navigate office politics or dynamics and etc. because sometimes we're just not trained how to do it. And so that is some things that comes up when I would say that type of conversational type of issues and violence or etc. People will be very dismissive, very rude, very much why are you upset? What's the problem? And they'll try to name drop and say, oh, I know this, I know that. All right, so Aziz Beck says, hello, how are you, beautiful girl? I see you from the Republic of Uzbekistan. Well, welcome, friend. How you doing today? Good to see you, and thank you for joining. If you all like this content so far, you should absolutely subscribe to the channel. This is what I do all the time. On Friday evenings, I have a little bit more time because I don't have to take my kids to school the next day. And so I'm here to really answer questions. So the lives tend to be a little bit longer, but I'm here to help you the way that I can. We have Mary John Mustafa. Hello. How are you doing today? Welcome. Kat says, when someone tells you something in confidence that reveals a deeper organizational rot, do you honor the confidence or escalate? How do you live with either choice? Kat, that's a fantastic question. Let's dive into that. It just depends. So let's say if someone, okay, let's break down the first part of your question. And if you all have questions here on the channel as well, you're welcome to ask. Also, I'm here to help you any way that I can. This is why this is Q&A. Okay, so Kat, if someone tells you a deeper organizational rot, as you say, and for those of you who may not know what she's referring to, you probably do. There's certain situations in organizations where there is something that is critically wrong. It could be the way that they speak to people, the way they communicate, the way they promote, the way they handle situations. There's something that is not right. Like, it's not right. It may not be ethically right. It may be a situation that is more of a risk to the organization, but that's just how they communicate. When someone tells you something like that in confidence, you have to make a determination as to what you do with the information. And this is my decision-making tree because I've been told very confidential information before in the past. And so this is personally, Kat, what I do. I do not like breaking confidence at all. There's something about someone coming to you in confidence and telling you something that is very, very sacred to me. And I appreciate them trusting me with the information. So I'm very big about not saying things. So what I do is I try to find a way, well, how can I bring this issue up without saying that person's name that told me? You could say, and I'll give you just generally speaking, you could say, because most of the time, Kat, when someone tells you about an organizational rot, so to speak, you probably already know a little bit about it. You just may not be as privy to the information as they are, but you may have just a slight sense of what's going on. And what I typically would do in those situations is I would try to ask questions about the issue. I would ask, how are we doing on this statistic? How are we doing on that? How are things going with this or whatever else? I would try to ask questions to find out information first. I would not say, Susie told me this, Mark told me this, Mary told me this, John told me this. I would find a way to protect that person and protect the confidentiality that they shared with me. That's just how I was as a manager. Not all managers are that way, okay? There's some managers that you tell them something, they will tell everybody else or tell people you don't need to know. But I'm just not like that. I don't believe in that. And I never have done that. Even as a C-suite executive, I never did that. And there's just a certain way you treat people. But I would try to ask questions. And that's how I would live with my choice. Because I know this is a problem. Can I do something? Is there something that I can do to correct the issue? Is there something that I can do to bring light to the issue, to make it better for everybody else? Or is this something that is just fundamentally a problem with this organization? And if it is, do I want to continue at this organization, or do I feel like I would be better suited at another place? That's how I live with my choices. I make sure that I'm doing what I would want someone to do to me. If I spoke to someone in confidence about something, I would expect them not to discuss it. I have personally done that many years ago, And I've had people say something to other people and I didn't quite like it, but most of the time I'm very careful about what I say in confidence, because you have to imagine, is the person was in front of you, would you say this to them, would you not? And sometimes you have to gauge and say, well, I don't know if I can really trust this person, if I want to say it or not, which is the reason why I weigh so heavily when someone comes to me in confidence about something. I'm not going to repeat what they said, but that doesn't mean that I can't escalate it in my own unique way. I would ask questions. I'd find out a little bit more, talk to some people that may be a bit more forthcoming about the issue. And maybe at some point in time, when there's the opportunity for me to have a platform to discuss it, then I can say, perhaps we can talk about engagement with patients or engagement in this role or what's going on with our bottom line. There's just timing of it. You have to basically put yourself in a situation where you have to think through it and say, and take the emotion out and say, okay, is this going to catastrophically change my life or the organization's life today, right now? And if you decide, no, probably not, but it's an issue, then that should dictate when you start having those conversations. That's how I've lived with myself, because I've had people tell me many confidential things over the years. Raj Kumar says, when I listen to public speaking or someone else, I understand every word, but when I communicate, I always use simple words. For example, I don't use words like subtle, sophisticated. I need to improve my vocab. That's okay. One of the things that you can do to start improving your vocabulary, I'll tell you what we do in Toastmasters. And I've done this over the years and even before I was in Toastmasters. But it's a good thing just to keep in mind. You can look at there's different websites that will literally email you a question, or not question, but a actual word of the day, and try to use the word of the day. One of the things that happened when I was in Toastmasters a long time ago, we would have the word of the day. And if you could use the word of the day, that would be great. So maybe start looking up, if you're trying to advance your vocabulary, then look up vocabulary words, have them emailed to you, read them, and then find out how can you use this word in your vocabulary. I used to have a long book. This is probably dating me, but there's a long, almost like flashcards of vocabulary words, because I wanted to build my vocabulary too. So Raj Kumar, people do this all the time. So just look up some apps or look up some sites where they email you the words, and then you can start using them in your day-to-day conversations. We have MB Vadoja. I know I said that wrong, and I'm sorry, friend. But says, hi from Cameroon. Welcome, friend. How you doing today? Kat says, I've been writing these questions all week long, so Doc, you were the best person I know to probably get to answer them. Of course, Kat. I'm here to support you any way that I can, and I hope I'm giving you some things to think about or some insights to help, and I appreciate you bringing these up, because the questions you're bringing up to the live, these are serious issues that people deal with all the time, and they do not know how to navigate them. They're not sure, well, what should I say? How should I say it? Excuse me, when should I be in this situation? When should I not say, when should I say something? When should I not? And when you're given very confidential information, it's very, very, very important to know. Okay, Kat says, what do you tell someone who has done everything right in a difficult conversation? Use all the skills, maintain integrity, and still being destroyed by organizational retaliation. I would tell them they probably need to quit. I mean, that was probably what I would tell them. They probably need to look for another organization, because if you are working for an organization that is retaliating against you, well, we have to dive into that, and we have to figure out what's going on and why. Is this something that needs to be represented by an attorney? Are you being disrespected? Is there something legally going on? I would want to have those conversations, maybe not with your employer, but with an attorney, and say, this is what's going on. Do you feel like I need to have this conversation, or there's something I need to do? Personally, I've done that many times in different roles I've had where things have not been where they should have been. I've definitely reached out for counsel and had just a very candid conversation to see what they thought and to get some insights, whether I need to be concerned about this or if I need to just try to find another opportunity. But I would say when someone does something right and they're very good with difficult conversations and all those wonderful things that you mentioned, but you're being destroyed by the organization, sometimes it's not worth staying. I've been I've been in a situation like that, and I resigned. I resigned with immediate resignation, because sometimes it's not worth it. There's different levels of people, Kat, and I thank you for the heart emojis. And sometimes, well, not sometimes, there is always a place when you are trying to elevate yourself in your career where your level starts to go here, but other people are here. And even your managers, your bosses, your peers, they are here. They're not here with you, Kat. And I know you're in college, you're doing a couple things now, but I already know just by how you communicate, you're working, you're getting up there. You are elevating, you're enhancing your learning. And that's the one challenge, the one struggle that I find a lot of people struggle with, is that it's hard. There's that transition where you find yourself and you're looking around and you're like thinking, am I the only one that thinks like this? Or am I the only one that has some common sense? And a lot of times you may be in those very toxic like organizations. So I would definitely leave. I would, maybe if you can't leave right now, I would plan your exit. I would start looking around. I would start talk to an attorney first, get your conversations, make sure there's nothing legally you need to address. But I would look for opportunities. I would actually look for something else, because you don't want to work for a place that's trying to destroy you. And I've been in that situation, Kat. That's why I can tell you from honest perspective, that's exactly what I did. I found another opportunity and I resigned immediately, and I was in a very high level role because I felt like I was at a whole entirely different level, and I didn't need to work with people that were trying to destroy people. I want to work for organizations that actually are trying to build people up. Raj Kumar says, during public speaking, I always think about how to deliver what I want to say and forget to make eye contact with all the listeners. How do I practice so I can get good eye contact with them all? Okay, Raj Kumar, there's a couple things you have to keep in mind with this. I have a video here on my channel that talks about eye contact. Look out for my cowboy analogy. I won't go into detail on it right now, but look out for eye contact videos in the cowboy. That's my analogy on how to maintain eye contact. However, when you are with a group of people and you're communicating with a group of people, eye contact is different, Raj Kumar. Very, very different. You don't have to make an effort to make direct eye contact with everybody. I think you may be being too hard on yourself, friend. You don't have to make contact with everybody. If the sheer fact that you're going to look around the room feels like you're looking at them, even if you're not looking at them. And if you are making eye contact with someone, that's okay. The more you practice, the more you speak, the more you will be comfortable making direct eye contact. And the way that you become more into making direct eye contact when you're speaking in front of a group of people, you have to master it in one-on-one settings first. I can speak to a group of people and make direct eye contact and make direct eye contact and make direct eye contact because I have been doing this for a long time. And the more you learn how to master eye contact on a one-on-one setting, it will become easier for you in a group setting. But just keep in mind that when you're speaking in front of a group of people, you don't have to make eye contact, but you do need to look around a little bit so that people feel like you're looking at them. All right, we have Kat. Kat says, how do you work with leaders who want you to train their managers in difficult conversations, but refuse to change the structural incentives that make those conversations necessary? This is one of those situations where you have to just be mindful of your energy, because if one of the fastest ways you can get burnt out in a role is when they say, hey, Kat, by the way, we want you to train our managers on having difficult conversations, but we are not going to change how we operate. There's only but so much you can do. What happens is they typically will put you in a situation where you feel like you have to do a lot more, and you're given all this energy because, especially as leaders, we try to give 100%. We really try to give 100%. But in this situation, Kat, I would not give 100. until they actually do some things structurally. My question to them would be, this is wonderful. I think this is a great way to start training other people to be able to manage difficult conversations and etc. However, there are a couple structural incentives that we need to talk about first before we start that training. Will we be able to modify A, B, and C? I have found that A, B, and C will be very, very helpful to help them navigate difficult conversations. If we cannot change A, B, and C, or we can't modify it, then we may need to approach difficult conversations a bit differently, perhaps having an overview or something along those lines. I would keep in mind that depending on their answer, and if they refuse to make those changes, then you have to just do things at a higher level, meaning that your energy level is not as high in that product or in that project, if that makes sense. Because it doesn't make sense for you to give all your energy into something that you know is just not going to change. It makes it very difficult. We have the let me see. The Sarvius, I hope that's correct. I hope you're doing well today. So we talked about a lot as it relates to difficult conversations. I'll go over my framework really quickly. So what I do specifically when I have a difficult conversation is, number one, I make sure I think about the person and what they have going on. What's the number one issue I need to talk to them about? That's the next thing I do. What do I need to talk to them about? That's really important. Three, I'm very mindful of the timing of when I have those difficult conversations. And then I just ask them how things are going. I know many of you have seen my difficult conversations videos. Ask the person how things are going in their role. Most of the time, if they're comfortable with you. If they're not comfortable with you, then you're going to have a hard time with this. But that's why you build a relationship, like we talked about earlier with Akitsia, is they should tell you or give you at least something to work with that's related to your main issue. Most of the time, they will tell you, oh, I'm struggling with this, or this is very hard, this is very difficult, or something along those lines. Just listen out for whatever that thing is specifically so that you can support them. And then finally, you have to close the loop. And we talked about that with Kat today. You have to close the loop in communication, because after you've had this conversation, there's this co-discovery there. Then there has to come to a point where you say, okay, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you sharing your insights here and doing that. This is what we can do to move forward, how we can change a couple things, etc. So that's my framework, what I do. There's a lot of other things I do in between there. But of course, if you want to go into this more and be that person that can communicate really at a higher level, because difficult conversations can go from easy to complicated in seconds. And you have to be prepared for those. You're always welcome to reach out to me, especially if you're a woman in leadership, and schedule an executive strategy session where we talk about where you are, where you're going, how you're communicating. And then, of course, if you have this big vision for your career that you're working on and you're just not quite sure where to go, then I'll support you with that. Most of my clients, we start off with an executive strategy session because that gives us the big picture goal. So I will give you an example. I have a client of mine who was in the process of looking for different jobs and positions, etc. But what was the big picture? The client, she's trying to go or trying to work her way to a C-suite executive position. So we know this is a big position. So I helped her with that, helped her be able to look into those roles and get into a different position and etc. And now she's in a position where she's very happy, and she's in a leadership role, and she's going to move up to executive. Now, all of this has to do with the big picture. That's why it's called a strategy session, to develop a strategy. Whether we are working on communication, a strategy for your career, where do you see yourself, what are some things you're struggling with, that's the purpose of it. So if you're a woman in leadership and you're really serious about trying to go to that next level, you definitely want to work with an executive coach, and I'd be happy to work with you. We have Hari Madhav. Hello, welcome, welcome. Kalai Pri. Hello, welcome back. We have user here. Says you are an attractive lady. Thank you. I appreciate that. And let's see what else we have. Nikam Joma. I hope I said it correctly. Are you a psychiatrist? No, I'm not a psychiatrist at all. I am a executive coach, a public speaker, a consultant, and a dentist. All right, we have Kalai Pry says, I'm looking to do my MBA. Where shall I do? Okay, so if you're looking to do your MBA, that is fantastic. Have you applied to programs? And what's the plan? Are you going to do your MBA this year? Are you planning? Well, this year, let's see, we're in March. So depends on when you're applying, but are you planning to do your MBA this year? Are you planning for 2027? Let's talk about it. What are your plans? Raj Kumar says, do you travel a lot and meet different people? Does it help to communicate better? Yes, it does. Yes, absolutely. I have traveled all over the United States. I have not traveled internationally yet. I will at some point in time. Can't do it right now, but at some point in time I will. But I have traveled to various states. I've been in Florida, North Carolina, Washington, D.C., New York and the Bronx, upstate New York, California, Houston, New Orleans. So I've been all over. And it does help you. I believe it helps you understand how different people communicate. I think that's most important because everybody communicates differently depending on where you're from and what specifically they are, maybe what they're dealing with specifically, how do they communicate with each other. So I think that's something to keep in mind. All right, Kalai Priest says this year. Yes, this year, 2026. Okay. Have you applied? So are you enrolled in a program right now or are you in the application process? Because I would think this is probably about that time where you would be enrolling. Just from what I remember from my college years, you might be enrolling now. But let me know. Let me know if there's something you want to talk about. But getting your master's is a great it's fun. You learn a lot. I don't have my MBA, but I do have my Master of Science in Public Health. And it took me a little while to get it, but I enjoyed the process. I do think it's a little bit different when you're working in different roles to have that advanced education that can help you on your journey. But would be interested to know what your plans are. Kat says Harvard Business School, you can get the MBA over there. Yes, they do have a pretty good program at Harvard, from what I understand. They have several programs that are pretty good. There's a couple things that I've noticed about Harvard. They have a couple of programs, and a lot of times because it's from Harvard, there's always a difference in how it's perceived. But one of the things I saw is that I don't want to say the name of the program. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's a leadership program. But I noticed that it was a good program, but there was not a lot of one-on-one support in the program. And I had a client of mine that was planning to enroll in it, and she decided not to, decided to work with me instead because the support just wasn't there. It wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad program, but what I found is sometimes when you're at that point, when you're trying to invest in yourself, invest in your growth and etc., that if you're at a place where you get general support and you don't have someone like with you directly to help you, it can make it just a little bit harder for you to be able to accomplish your goals pretty fast. But Harvard, they have pretty decent programs. There's a lot of great programs, a lot of great MBA programs out there. And I would say, especially with nowadays, it's just, I would just say that things have changed so much. I mean, you can get MBAs in different locations, just whatever's going to work for you. There's so much information out there online. There's so much free information there. You can't go wrong with anywhere you go. Raj Kumar says, can an introvert person become a good communicator? Yes, they can. They just have to practice. But a lot of times with being an introvert, you're just typically shy. And that's okay. As long as you are aware of that, then you know there are strategic times when you want to communicate and strategic times when you want to maybe pause and not communicate. And ultimately, you have to do what's comfortable for you, what is not going to be comfortable for you, or maybe if you don't want to speak in front of a group or something like that, then you just want to keep in mind that you may not be comfortable in those specific type of settings. Let's see if there's anything else in the chat. Okay, so I appreciate you all. We had some really great discussion here in terms of how to deal with those very challenging situations. Let me see what Raj Kumar says. When you sit with your colleagues during lunch, I always like to listen. Yes, that's really good. And it helps you to learn a lot of information about what's going on in the world and how you can help other people and understand what they're dealing with and their challenges specifically. Because, I mean, you will find out a ton of information just by listening to someone, what they're saying, what they're not saying, and etc. So I think that's fantastic. Kat says, yes, anyone can be a good communicator. It all starts by going out there and train yourself to communicate confidently. Exactly. You have to make a decision, just like anything else in life. You just have to make a decision in terms of what you're going to do. Okay, let's see. Unknown name. I'm definitely not I wouldn't say I'm that exactly. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm that kind of leader, but I'm very glad to be here to support you all on your journey in terms of how you communicate. And I appreciate you being here. If you like this information, I appreciate the thumbs ups. It really does allow the videos to get out to more people on YouTube, which is great. And if you have any friends or colleagues that are at a point where they're trying to advance themselves in their career, or they may be struggling with something, a lot of times it comes down to how they're communicating under pressure, whether they're in interviews, whether they're in salary negotiations, or they're presenting to a board or talking to their constituents, or in a very highly visible role. It all comes down to how you can communicate under pressure. So I'm here to support you. Thank you for the heart emojis. Let me know what other questions you all have and how I can help you on your journey as it relates to this topic specifically. If you have any other topics you want to talk about, let me know. Kat came up with a couple of great topics that we'll start working on next week. But if any of you are watching any of my videos and you're find something that resonates with you and that you're interested in learning more about, then just put something in the comments below and I'll be more than happy to do a video for you, give you a shout out in the video as well. So I hope you all have an absolutely amazing weekend. I appreciate your support as always. Feel free to ask me any questions. I'm here to help you in any way that I can. And subscribe to the channel if you like this content and you're ready to go to that next level as you communicate. I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now.